Hi, welcome back to another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends, the super awesome podcast show where me, your Irish friend Chris Dyer, talks to all his amazing creative friends. Today, I'm in Wonderfield Farms in Floral City, Florida, for an event called Sacred City, where I'll be live painting. And I had a chance to talk to Poranguí. Poranguí is a beautiful brother who does awesome world shamanic music that I've been a fan of for many years. And we had a chance to have a very nice spiritual conversation that I feel activated me, and I've learned so much, and I even grew in the hour that we talked, and I'm so grateful, and I hope you will enjoy it too. Blessings.
While the world is turning, got to make amends. Walk on the sunny side with the positive lens. Talked about passion with all the beings in this land. Chris Dyer and his creative friends, darling.
Well, Poranguí, thank you so much, man.
Woo! Placer. Qué placer.
Yeah, so nice to be here with you in Floral City, Florida. I think we're at Sacred City, very small, intimate gathering you'll be performing at tonight. Are you like excited to play, or is it like you play so much that it kind of like wears off, or like every time it's like, okay, like even if it's only like 100 people, it's like my chance to like bring a prayer and activate people?
Yeah, I think the latter for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, this land is really special. Yeah, you know, this place is it's an intermediary land. It's a land that's also water. It's como los dos. It's and because the unique way the way that this land shows up, being kind of half and half, it's in between. It offers an opportunity where worlds are meeting and coexisting, cohabitating. So as humans, we rarely inhabit places like this, yeah? We're usually land dwellers. And so it's a really beautiful way to address both elements in their coexistence. Yeah, and you have creatures that live between like the gators, right? And so it's like being able to bring this kind of music, I think, to this place and offer a vibrational prayer.
Yeah, I never really thought about like half ocean water land and half physical land. I guess it's like land on the come up, unless if the water
Does
takes
it come
over.
down? Yeah.
I hope we still build up
Yeah.
one leaf at a time. I'm always like crunching leaves, and you're like, come on, turn into earth. Let's build this up. But yeah, like I'm a Pisces, so I'm all
Okay.
about like fishes
Uh-huh.
and Neptune and like that fresh
Beautiful.
energy. As I told you before, I'm from Peru, but I also lived in Canada. And when I moved to the States, I like had to like choose a place, and it just felt very like fresh.
Yeah.
You know, lots of like just like water cleanses. You know, so I like it here. It's cool. I guess like a big difference from where you live. You live in Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Very dry.
Yeah, we're in northern Arizona, so there's water, but it's like you really appreciate water. Like you kind of have to really track it because it's life. And so there, it's not as abundant as here, where anywhere you turn, you have moisture.
Okay.
So there, you have to know the right plants that kind of signal that there's water in a certain place. You have to know, you have a relationship to your water source. So there, like we have springs that we have a deep relationship, and that's why we live where we live. So we can go there, we connect to that water, make offerings, and receive its blessing. Yeah.
So that's like Flagstaff?
Yeah, between Flagstaff, we live in Sedona,
Okay.
so kind of about an hour south of Flag.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Sedona is super spiritual, shanty, alien portals, right?
it has all of it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it has it all. It has everything from the real, you know, kind of I'd say surface level, maybe, a new age kind of thing, to I think much deeper roots there. You know, very ancient ancestral place. You know, it's been visited and been inhabited and been a spiritual hub, I think, for longer than we know, much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because of its natural beauty and the dramatic landscape? Or do you think there's something behind physical reality that perhaps expressed itself as the landscape that people kind of like feel inside and then are attracted to that vortex?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like which came before, right? I don't know that there. For me, I think it's a emergent thing. I think that land, the energy of the place, and the way where it is, because it's right at an altitude that's between the Sonoran Desert and between the pine kind of forest, like kind of up at the higher plateau. It's kind of the bottom of the Rockies, essentially. That's the very end there of the chain, comes down there. So then it drops off and then becomes the desert. So it's high desert, then turning to low desert.
Okay.
And so that place inhabits a unique kind of ecosystem that I think allows for energy to be shifting, be rolling, transforming, kind of like here. Only there it's between the highlands and the lowlands, and so it opens up a portal. So there's so much life that's nestled into these canyons and slots and that are etched into this because of the way the stones eroded. This ancient, it was an ocean, yeah?
Yeah.
So all that sandstone was then deposited and compressed. And then it creates this. So when you're walking there, you feel what it was like to be in the ocean, right? You're basically at the bottom of an ocean floor. And so when you're looking at these rocks, like I always see like the whales and the dolphins. I mean, they're there, right? Sometimes we find shells, we'll find like remnants. And so it's just like connects you to how all of life is constantly changing. Everything's going to change. This will be totally different.
And the peaks of those tall mountains were probably little islands.
Right. At one time. Yeah.
And probably like before it was an ocean, it probably was kind of like flat. And then there was like the great flood that just like carved out all that valley, but leaving certain points.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I don't know.
I think it's
history of it.
No, I think it's more a question of erosion because of just the nature of the sandstone. It's so fine. So just water and wind doing its job, over time, just whittling it out. So you find all these beings there in the stones. When you're looking at them, when you're with them, it's like yourself. Incredible art. When you see that, it's like it's inexpressible. It captures the inexpressible, which I think is the power of música, of visual, artwork, right? All the arts, that's its power. Is that we're able to express things that we can't say with idioma, with our language, right? Even any language. It's like we don't have a word for this. But when you see it, when you feel the vibration of it, it immediately translates.
I find lands like that are special and powerful and collect a lot of energy, also like just work you.
Yeah.
It's like, and you as a shamanic person might be like, sure, work me, but some people might be like, oh, this place is cool and it's so spiritual, and then they get worked. It's like, oh, fuck this place, I can't, too much work.
Yeah.
Are you up for the work?
Well, I've been there, I moved there thinking I'd be there for like a year, and it's been 15 years.
Okay.
I've never lived anywhere this long in my life. So, I was born in Brazil, my father's from Mexico.
Oh, cool.
And so I grew bouncing around the Americas, and I lived in actually North Carolina. I went to school at Duke University there, and so I really appreciate the East Coast. So I moved around my whole life. Spent a year in China, in Zhongguo, in Beijing, and I love moving. And so now my life is touring artist. But like for me, Sedona, it amplifies. People talk about vortex.
Yeah.
Like what I experienced there is that it amplifies, and so anything, good, bad, and ugly. So whatever you have that you're not looking at, it's going to come to the surface, and you're going to have to look at it. So if you're not ready, that's where I think people get kind of spun out and spit out.
Yeah.
And those I think who are ready to go there and see the value in having things amplified so you can accelerate your growth, I think are called to that kind of energy.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not for everyone. And there's times where I'm like, oh my God, this is intense,
Yeah.
But I guess I'm a pretty intense person. I love it. I thrive in intensity. I grew up in a really difficult childhood and, split house. So bouncing around the Americas, like I was saying.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I find, that's what made me who I am. The resiliency that I carry in my bones and knowing my power and why I'm here on this earth comes from that hardship. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't be who I am. So it's like, I see, it's just like the rocks of Sedona. If it wasn't for those waters and the wind and everything carving me out, I wouldn't be who I am. So it's like, the hard forces that happen in our lives, right? They're what form us.
Right.
So I find I've learned to really celebrate it and cherish it rather than to be like, oh, poor me, oh, I suffer. To choose that is to take it in that way. Is to see the blessing.
Right.
Como dicen en Mexico, no hay mal que por bien no venga, right? So there's always that silver lining. There's no bad that doesn't bring a lot of good. So
right.
Yeah, for me, that's kind of been my
And you can even just like harmonize with the energy eventually. You're just like, oh no, that's just everything. Like there's no good, no bad. Just bring it. It's all good. I can flow with it. And it's not doesn't even become bad anymore. It's just kind of like, okay, it's just the waves of life.
Yeah, I would take it a little further. I'd be like, we could say things are good or bad, or things are hard, difficult, or easy, or fluid. But it's like there's a place that I find myself is leaning into the place of seeing it all as an opportunity. Whatever's showing up, like this is the opportunity now for me to show up. So like if it's like I gotta wash the pile of dishes, then you know what? This is the opportunity for me to like drop into my practice. How can I like make this dishwashing experience a meditation, a prayer? And literally like, okay, this is a job where I can like leave things more beautiful than I find it. I can add a rhythm, I can sing, maybe I'm gonna play a little beat on the pan. You know what I mean? I'm just like make something into music.
Right. If anything, like I love periods of like calm and good. It's like I yearn from it when I'm struggling.
Yeah.
But then when things are calm for too long, you're like, all right, this thing's getting boring. Like bring more growth. Give me a little bit of challenge here and there. Come on, So, but yeah, sometimes the hard periods last years, and you're just like, okay, I'm really freaking tired. Can you just like chill on me, life? So I didn't know where you were from. There's a lot I don't know about you, so this is very exciting for me. So you're Brazilian. From which part of Brazil?
São José dos Campos.
Okay, I don't know.
São Paulo.
Okay, São Paulo area.
Born there, but I grew up various places. So.
Okay, and also Mexico. Which part of Mexico?
Yeah, well, my father's from DF.
DF.
The capital. But yeah, my familia come from Veracruz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So do you go there once in a while?
Yeah. I try to go as often as I can. We've been touring more and more in Mexico, and I hope to keep growing that. Brazil as well. We just started doing more shows there, but I go every year to Brazil. I see my mother. We have a place near Alto Paraíso, like in the center of Brazil. It's kind of another Sedona of Brazil, I would say, It's like a very beautiful Mecca. In Chapados Veadeiros is a very beautiful national park that's right there. And it's like, the headwaters, a lot of rain comes there and eventually will feed into the Tocantins and leads to the Amazonas. So it has a very special energy, a lot of crystal energy, like powerful land. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so for me, that's my recharge, to be in that place.
So being that you're from 2 different countries, you live in a 3rd country, you have shamanic paths, like do you consider yourself from one culture, many cultures, the oneness culture? Do you have like a specific tribe? Do you have specific lineage? Like do you have to choose, or are you just like, oh no, I'm just a mishmash? Like what's your approach?
Oh, great question. Yeah, I would say all of it. All of the above. Yeah. Because it is a mishmash. I find, very much like the name of the tour right now that we're doing. It's called Chakaruna, which is a Quechua word. Runa is the people, and Runa is the bridger. So the bridge people. And for me, like, that's really at the essence for me, what I've come to, how I identify what my experience is. It's like the blessing of growing up multicultural and cross-cultural, right? And when you're a child, it's very hard because you just want to fit in. You just want to belong. So you're always like the one that's kind of the weird one, the one who has the weird name, the one who's stuck in the back of the Poranguí is like, people don't understand. It's my birth name. That's not an artist name.
Yeah, that's a strange name.
It's a pretty strange name, It's Tupi Guarani. It comes from Brazil. My mother gave it to me. Yeah. And it's a name that carries its own medicine that has been still revealing itself to me. But this notion of Chakaruna being a world bridger, it's like at the core of it for me is it's a gift, because again, it's like taking all the things that we were gifted and seeing them as gifts and seeing what is the medicine of this. Well, it's an opportunity to be able to be a bridge between cultures, between worlds, between language, between seen and unseen. That's really, I feel, my calling. It's like I was given this unique perspective of life in this incarnated form, and the ability to be able to translate that to different cultures, to different peoples, and in that way bring us closer together to a unification and a respect, not to say anything of lessening diversity, because that's at the core of it. I think life is all about diversity. Life thrives with diversity, right? And differences, that's actually what makes us rich. But it's learning how to cohabitate, coexist, how to, each being has its niche, right? Has its place, and it's essential to the rest of the whole. And because we destroy so many species with our modern, kind of way of living, it's 2-legged, we're seeing that collapse. We're like making monocrops, right? And so I think right now the invitation, that also goes for art, right? Mono art, everything now, and with the AI and what is coming in, it's turning everything into the same, just the same of the same. And so it's going to leave everything. It's impoverishing us under when we think it's not, and we don't even see it. It's eroding, I think, our fundamental, like the wealth of the diversity of life itself. And so for me, it's like my mission is really about bringing that diversity and bridging the different culturas, bridging the language. So I sing in, 4 languages, and then I just sing in, ancestral language, tongues, And then the other part of that is also bridging the ancient and the future. And so bringing the technology like that, bringing the technology of what is coming through of our ancestors. So even in the instruments that I play, everything is live and organic, as I was mentioning earlier. And then being able to bring that into the context also, though, of bringing the elements of technology and the future production styles. So which, merges into this electronic, but without losing the identity and the raíz, the DNA and the vibration of the original instruments. I think that's really important versus just having samples where I'm just triggering samples and electronically. It's like you play, you master the ancient instrument, bring that instrument and let it be heard and felt, and then be able to enhance that and multiply it with the technology we have. And so that I can still play next to, say, a DJ who's playing mastered big, dance tracks, but I can bring this ancestral sound through, because that, I believe, the land needs. It's like nourishment. It's mana for the beings and the humans, the two-leggeds. They don't even realize it when you're hearing always a sampled instrument, beat, versus when you're hearing an actual skin of a drum, that was made from an animal.
Each beat is particular and different. Even it might sound the same, but the beat of the computer is just like, it's the one same beat, just repeated. Yes. There's that, exactly. There's that, and the way it was synthesized was from a synthesizer, was from other electronic elements, So there's something about the skin, the natural skin. It came from reality, from analog, from actually happening in the physical world, as opposed to a bunch of zeros and ones interacting in a certain way that created some expression of it. Yes, and it came from that moment. So for me, playing the actual instrument in the performance, in the moment, with the audience, with the spirits in the space, the land, it's like all of that information actually is there, being captured into the loop that I'm creating, and then that's being able to be, turned into the song in the moment. And so it's relevant to the moment, and that's the power of music itself that I think we've kind of lost track of, this thread of the power of the presence of now. Because of everything now, the advent of the DJ, and the advent of like now taking old recordings, which are actually technically, the recordings are echoes of another moment. Like even this recording now of us, this is this moment right now that we're living in, present in, but now others will experience at a later moment. And so there's a transmission of information in that that's beautiful, but it takes us out of also the power of the temporal time of now, which is something that art, especially dance and music, they're temporal art forms. So they bring us right into the presence of now, which we're so busy, most humans nowadays, in our phones, distracted, we're always going to another moment. We're not in the now. We lose our presence. And this is actually, I think, a dis-ease that's, throwing us out of our connection to source, to the earth itself. Because she just lives in the now. She's not looking at videos from years ago or thinking about, what's happening 2 years from now. She's just now. Life is now. But with music, for example, hopefully we're tapping into our eternal self that's always there and awake and here, and we transmit it in the moment of making that music that is that nowness, but then you hear a recording of it. But can we somehow connect that echo to the eternal self through that thing? So this is like a question I had for you is like, so many people will listen to your music during ceremony, and then in that moment, they're tapping into their eternal oneness being past time and space, and they're connecting with your music as the boat to float them through the energies. And it's almost like your eternal self shows up. And you might be like at the grocery store, like buying some apples, but they're connecting with your eternal self that is connected to the guy who's buying the apples. Does that affect you? Like, does it bring you into like, whoa, like right now there's a special moment happening through the filter that I've created in some former incarnation of now? I don't know if this is too confusing of a question, but does this interdimensional usage of your music affect you on any day?
It's a good question. Does it affect me where I'm able to perceive the effect? It's hard to say, other than I feel a connection in just in my presence. I feel that the work I'm here doing at this time is having ripples. And I feel that mostly when I receive that feedback from other people, like at a show or at one of our retreats or one of our experiences that we create. You know, when someone comes to me and they're like, your music was on at the birthing of our child, and they tell me, you know, or we put your music on when my relative was passing on, like you're present, that music, that prayer, which all the music I make comes with a lot of intention, a lot of cariño, a lot of care. And so that love and care is being transmitted and resonated out to others at all times. And one of the craziest things is, like, you know, Spotify is a very interesting thing. So they have an ability on the artist side of it. You can see how many people are listening to a song right now, like on Spotify.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting thing to like see that and see that the numbers like going up or down or whatever, and just seeing people are like, this is how many people right now in this moment are connecting to the music that we've created.
They're in the now enjoying the music, maybe for the first time.
Maybe.
And you're not there playing it,
Right.
but hopefully you injected your eternal self into the music that
Oh, I
kind of
did.
brings a presence of you into
Absolutely.
the now.
So that's why that's what I'm saying. I think it's a really interesting, like, I feel into that. Like when I'm washing the dishes, do I feel all the people who are sitting in ceremony in that moment with my music? Like, I think that is being felt on a super subtle level. But it's like I have to also be able to bring my energy back in.
Yeah, you got to protect yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there is a level of protection, of care, you know, for my own energy body so that I can continue to show up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if I leave myself in an expanded state, yeah, then it's like it gets a little hard to navigate the 3D.
You lose groundation.
Yeah, you know, this kind of your thread, your grounding cord. So for me, it's definitely there's a dance between that. I mean, when I'm opening myself, like later today when we do the performance here, you know, there's a prayer being made. You know, I always open my shows with a prayer with my team to be able to ground the prayer of what we're going to bring, and then the prayer of this on the stage, and that intentionality creates the field. And whenever I open myself up and I feel into the field, I can feel the whole, you know, connection and the threads that were connected like that. Not in a courting kind of like draining way, but in the way that it's resonance for me. So when I create like even a recording, even a painting, yeah, we create something that has its own frequency resonance. It becomes its own being though. It's no longer me. It's left me. It now has its own life. So once that recording is in the world, it takes on its own life. I'm a parent. I do my best to be a good father and mother, right? There's fathering and mothering to make sure it's birthed into the world. But then once it's in the world, it has its own life. I try to check in on it, make sure it's doing okay, you know, but otherwise, then it becomes theirs. It has its own life, its own existence, you know.
Yeah.
I never imagined my song Iluminar would have, 16 million listeners on it. I never imagined that would be the song that so many would resonate with, you know, but it did. And so it's had its own unique life and journey that I'm like, I get to check in and like, I'm so grateful for its gift to me.
You're just like the filter. It came through you. Of course, it's got a piece of your heart, but if you channel it from the eternal, it's really for all.
That's why I love the metaphor of a child. It is truly like giving birth to a child, right? Because it's su hijo. It has its own life. It's like we're the parent, so it has our DNA. It has a connection to us, a thread. We were the portal that brought this life through, but it came from the divine. We can't take the credit for anything, really. We're just like, had the honor and the privilege of being there in the moment, tuning into the transmission that was coming from the divine, and now bringing that into the physical form. And at that point, it's like, now, once we deliver it in a good way, hopefully, right? Yeah. Then it's like really trusting. And so part of that parenting is like, okay, I'm not gonna let Coca-Cola or Pepsi try to put it in their commercial, right? Like there's ways that we have to still be a good parent, but it's like, but it's otherwise, it's just allow it to do its work in the world. Right. And support that, amplify it if we can. So, and then hopefully that will resonate enough people that then they want to come to experience the in-person now moment of the live experience. And for me, that's where I lead in my work is like, it's really about these prayers. And the more gente that we bring together, you know, that way that is amplified out. But it doesn't matter if it's 100 people or 10,000 people. Like for me, it's the same. You know, that prayer, because it's not just the seen people. They're all the unseen people. They're all the other animals here on the land. They're all the alligators, you know. It's all of these relatives. They're all present. They're all receiving these vibrations.
Each person's a universe, and each person
Seguro.
counts, and you're just throwing it into the field, as you say. So when you talk about tapping into the field, can I dare ask you, do you have any amount of psychic powers, inborn or gained through your human life, that now you know how to kind of like observe, feel, and be a better channeler to what you have to do in that particular moment of sharing the eternal through your particular filter of a heart?
Yeah, I would say yes. I've cultivated a lot of those feelings. I think that's for me, you know, at the core of music is a musician. And I think as in any artist or artist, as I like to say, you know, it's cultivating the art of feeling through the heart. And when we feel through the heart has this ability, and this has been proven now scientifically, to be able to sense and to feel. It has a field that is larger even than our body's field energetically. And so it can track things that are happening. It can already sense things that are happening ahead of time. It can feel the future and the past. It's like it's so in the present that it has this field that picks up and detects it. So when I'm tracking in the heart and amplifying that field, there's this ability to then be able to sense what needs to happen next. It's like it's just so clear. So when I'm making music on the fly, because I improvise all my sets, I don't have a set list. I don't know what I'm gonna play. I just that's why I bring 40 instruments. You know, it's like your colors of your easel. Yeah, you have all these different colors. You need all the colors. You don't know. You have primary colors, but then you have every shade, right? Yeah. And each one, you don't know what's gonna come in that moment. You're like, it needs this, but you know, as soon as it's like present, like the question is being asked. Boom. Ahí está. And you know it, right? You feel it. It resonates. Yeah. It's the same thing for me. I'm painting with sound. So there I'm like, okay, what's the foundation layer? Okay, here's the foundation. This is telling me the next thing is this. So, or cooking. It's like, you know, I'm in there and I'm chefing. I'm like, how do I make the most delicious groove right now that then says, oh, this is the harmony now that's needed, the melody, now here's the harmony, and now you need to take this away, and now you need to add this, because the added thing is versus the painting, which once you set it, it's like it lives in this expression. Yeah. With the music, it's unfolding over time. Yeah. It continues to unfold over time. So then I'm also the producer and the arranger and the songwriter all at the same time, you know? So I'm then like, okay, let me cut this out. Let me take out the low end. Let me bring this back in. Let me, you know, break it down. Oh, actually, now we're gonna go somewhere else. Let's take this one element and now let's inspire a whole new piece that's coming through. Now the charango. Now, you know. Yeah. So that's 40 instruments that you play? I actually haven't counted. It's a lot. It's in that range though. Yeah. When I did count, I think it was definitely just this one box is like 30 something. So wow. Yeah. So you're like addicted to like find out the next video game instrument to like play and master, and then see how you combine it with the rest. Just like a mixed media, like collage of all expressions possible. I don't know if I'd call it like addicted to that. It's like, I think for me it's, I would compare it to like colors. I had a good friend who was a painter, a really good friend in Brazil, and he would go to the beach. He lived in Nordeste near Natal, which is up in the northeast of Brazil, and he would find all of his paints. He would find from the clays and the side by the ocean. It was in the side of these rocks that had been eroded, and he would go and find all these shades of red. Yeah. Because there's different, you know, in Brazil there's a lot of red earth, you know, and so he would find each one. He'd make all his paints like this from these soils. And the way he explained it to me, I loved it, because he was like, each shade of red has its own vibration and texture and sentiment. Yeah. It has its own feeling that it generates because of that. Yeah. And so it's like, he's like, so I want all of them. I want each part of this shades of the deep red, the spectrum. So for me, it's like, I guess you could say I'm addicted to being able to create the most diverse spectrum of sound possible without using a synthesizer. Yeah. Without using, you know, the electronic elements that kind of, I don't want to say cheat, but they kind of accelerate your ability to create a spectrum of sound versus having the limitation of what happens, how do I do this with an organic instrument? How do I create that sound that's never been created before? That's and on how they create a color that's never been created before. It's all like impossible. And in probably of all the instruments, the best, most important of all of them is this. Because I say, you know, people ask me like, how many instruments you play? I tell them one. I only play one. It's master the one instrument, and everything else is an extension actually of this instrument. Yeah. So it's our body, it's our voice, yeah. So being able to create with just what's built in.
Can you do like weird, like different whistles? Do you got like a variety of whistles?
Close your eyes.
Like, okay.
Close your eyes.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah. That's so weird. That was like some weird bubbly bat. Man, you must trip out people on ceremony. Do you ever play? Well, I did. You probably play during ceremonies like often, or like is that like a thing that you do?
I think.
Or in ceremony, you're just like, I can't play instruments right now.
Every time I play is a ceremony for me.
Oh wow.
So it's like it is. So for me, it's but if you mean specifically in the context of plant master
medicine.
teachers,
Yeah.
yes, I do have for many years. You know, and also ceremonies that don't have a plant medicine, just ceremonies where the medicine is water and fire. You know, the elements.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been playing in ceremonies since I was very young.
Nice, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I got so many questions that like, you know, you bring up things that's like, oh, I want to ask him this, I want to ask him that. Like you were talking about being multicultural and you're like, oh man, I resonate so much with that because I grew up in Peru, but then I lived in Canada for 26 years and I feel like I'm like a bridge between like two cultures. I feel Latino inside, but I'm light skinned and now I'm in America.
I know this challenge.
So I'm like very confused and I'm a man, I'm very much a boy, but I'm very sensitive too. And you know,
feel you.
and I wanna like be like a bridge, but also I don't wanna be homogenized where I lose my individuality and my identity.
Ahí está.
And I wanna see the world be one thing, but at the same time, I don't wanna be like a new world order where we're all just a bunch of robots and we lose our one, our
diversity.
differences, you know?
Yes.
There's beauty in our differences, even though we fight about them sometimes, but hopefully, eventually, we appreciate all the spectrum.
Both and.
Yeah. So yeah, I really love a lot of the things that you said. So just like really,
Yeah.
I'm happy to get to
Yeah.
know you.
Yo también.
Hi. We take this little pause from our conversations for me to let you know that I got a brand new art book. This is my second art book, Shamanic Journey, that just came out with Last Gasp Publications. It's a 256-page book, full color, shiny, beautiful pages with full of my art, writing, stories, basically everything I've done in the last 13 years. And I worked really hard on this book. It took me months to lay out by myself, and obviously the art has been a labor of love of many years, and I've condensed it all in this beautiful book that now is available on positcreations.net. You can get a signed version, you can get an unsigned version for a little bit cheaper. And yeah, this won't run out of electricity. On this digital world where we gotta charge everything, or a solar flare could knock out the electricity of the world and you'd be like, whoa, where did all my Chris Dyer go? No, this runs on energy forever. You never gotta charge it, you never gotta water it. It'll always be there to give you new inspiration and art. And I've done this with a lot of love, you know, and I hope that you will get a copy for your own personal library. And reflect yourself in it and make your own book and story of your life. But here's mine, and I hope you will enjoy it. positcreations.net. Thank you. Let me focus on your shamanic path. Do you follow a specific lineage? For example, like I've tried many medicines, but I'd say like I'm into ayahuasca. Bufo was too much for me, like maybe I'm too sensitive. Iboga, it's not really calling me. Cactuses, they fucking work my stomach and they have a moment, you know, like if I've been drinking too much and I take a cactus, it's like, okay, let's rinse you out, you stupid idiot, suffer here for 12 hours, but at least at the end of it, I'll be empty and be like, thank you so much, I'll be better this season. But at the end of the day, I go back to Aya, that works me too, but holds me in her arms and shows me who I am, and I'm getting more used to it as much as it's like disconcerting.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, like this is crazy, but at the same time, like, okay, cool, I am that too, and thank you, and I'll bring it into my normal life so I can be of service through this. what's your process in all the stuff I just threw at you?
Oh, that's a big question. I think simply for me, the lineage that I follow, that I practice, is referred to often. It doesn't have a formal name, but it's referred to as the Red Road.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard of it.
Camino Roja. Yeah, and so this the Red Road is an indigenous path.
Uh-huh.
You know, it comes from different ways. We live very close to the Navajo Nation, the Dene Nation. The Dene people, you know, they have their own practices, very, very rich, very, very beautiful. Their ceremonial ways, spiritual ways, very much around the connection with beauty way and this invitation of how to live in beauty, not a narcissistic beauty that comes from the soul, that comes from like the invitation of how do I leave the world and everything more beautiful than I found it.
Yeah, that term always confuses me because,
Yeah.
and I don't want to criticize anybody, but when I see the term, the beauty way being used, is usually these really beautiful Miami models turned shamanic, and there's like the beauty way and all their beautiful pictures of them being all shamanic, and I'm like,
Yeah.
is it okay to be ugly too? Because like, you know, like I'm a normal looking dude, but I'm also
Absolutely.
spiritual. So like
Yeah.
that always confuses me, but I'm sure it's more about like the beauty of nature, the beauty that we all are regardless of
Yeah.
what we look like. What is it for you?
You hit it on the head. I think it's about the beauty that comes from nature herself. When we look at the red rocks of Sedona, when we look at this beautiful landscape here, right? The beauty, the way that it touches our soul in a way that is ineffable, this is the beauty. The beauty that comes from the morning star, the beauty that comes from, you know, the feeling of the first sunlight touching our face when we're in the morning, we're greeting the day and we're making a prayer for our life and for what can today be. What's the infinite possibility? Not a beauty that comes from looking in a phone or from a mirror or from a camera. I think that's why I said not narcissistic beauty. That's glamour. The glamour channel, it has it also has its beauty. Not in that way, if you know what I'm saying, but it has its beauty too. However, it's distorted. And the distortion offers us an opportunity to look more deeply. What's underneath that? What is the insecurity? Why someone has to do that whole thing? Where do they not love themselves that they have to create the facade? So it offers us a perspective into our beauty because it's another mirror. Where am I doing this? What part of me is in the facade? Is getting distracted by the illusion of what we think with our eyes and we see, which is just the surface and shows us nothing of the rich, infinite depth. That's the true beauty, I believe, that is being invited of us. And so in this way, which there's a word in Dene, is hojon. Hojon is captures this essence of beauty way. You know, it's so nuanced and you can't even translate it into English. It's just beauty way, but that's the rough translation, right?
Yeah.
So I don't even want to present like I even can explain this fully, you know. But I just want to like offer hopefully some insight.
Yeah.
So the invitation, as I said, is how do I leave everything that I touch more beautiful than I find it? And so feel into that. When you feel that, it's like, for me, it's like, how do I, like in the Airbnb, how do we actually leave it nicer? How do we not just trash the place, right? How do we pick up after ourselves? How do we, like, when I'm in a conversation and I don't agree with this person, like we were just saying, right? You have a different look on life, maybe a different political view, whatever. How could I still see the beauty in you and still respect you and even love you? And hold that as my leading question and invitation, rather than being like, just turning you into an evil thing or a bad thing and being like, oh, whatever, and you're disposable. Treating you like trash. How do I even see the beauty in trash and what trash can become and what it was, and feeling gratitude for all of that plastic, what it served? And now how do I find the beauty in turning that plastic? How can that become more life? And if it cannot, then how do I commit my life to finding ways to be able to change that? And that's the level of which I think it's inviting us into this deeper nuances of beauty. So it's definitely not the glamour channel.
Maybe the word beauty or its translation is misleading
it's lost
me.
in
Maybe like divine is what like should be. I'm not gonna tell it shoulds, but like what you're telling me is like the divinity in a piece of plastic on the ground. You know, like the divinity on your political adversary or whatever. Like what's the God in everything? Because everything is God, expressing itself through whatever it is.
And that is the unity consciousness. In our indigenous, and we're all indigenous if we go back far enough, all of us, you know? And so even when we present as, you know, güerito, it's like we still have that indigeneity, you know, it's there. And all beings at one point was colonizer and indigenous, all. And they've been like this interlapping. And it's not to say we can just collapse and say, oh, so we don't have to take accountability or responsibility. We absolutely must. We must know where we come from. So I think a lot of people in our modern world now, we forget. We don't really know where we come from. We just, oh, I'm a big mix. And so we kind of just be like, we take the path of, I don't know. And by just saying I don't know, it precludes any responsibility. And if you don't have responsibility, that ability to respond, you cannot respond to life. You're going to be reacting to life. And so there's an invitation. It's not that you take it. A lot of people don't. But there's an invitation. And in fact, let me take that further. Our society, and when I mean mainstream consumer culture, right? Trans-corporate, transnationalism, you know, which you could say neo-colonialism. We're still being colonized today, right? Only now it's by big corporations. That's what's happening if you're tracking, right? And so what they want is us not to remember those roots. They don't want you to remember your indigeneity. They don't want you to remember that voice in you that calls and asks, why are you so hung up on your looks and appearances? Because they make their money by selling you appearances. But when you go deeper and see the ugliness and cherish the ugliness and the differences and the places that it's not perfect, then you see the beauty in the imperfection. And in fact, that is true beauty. It's being able to embrace the imperfection. It's being able to live with uncertainty and to embrace it as the only certainty, and inviting us, propelling us forward in life and collaborating with life to make something beautiful. How do I turn this pile of trash into art? You know, in Brazil, I have some friends who are artists. They work with they'll take all the bottle caps and all the different trash and they'll make huge collages and epic pieces of art. They make instruments out of the plastic, right? It's like, how do we make beauty out of this? When I was in Vietnam years ago, I was gifted this instrument. It's called Dan Moi. It's a jaw harp, and I play it in my sets. And this instrument, it was amazing because when they gave it to me, it was made of brass. And I'm like, wow, like why do you make them of brass? Like traditionally they were made of bamboo. And I found out later that it had to do with the fact that there were so many brass casings from all the bullets from the Vietnam War. And so they turned the bullet shell into an instrument. Like to fathom like the creativity, right? That's I believe our true blessing as humans, as two-leggeds, is our ability, that ability to take in our hands and be tool makers. We can turn anything into something actually beautiful and useful that has now serving life. Something that served death and destruction, turn it into something that serves life. And I think that is, if I can try to capture, I guess, the essence of Hojong, that's I think at the core of it, of the beauty way. And I hope that, and when you ask, going back to your original question of lineage, for me, that's the lineage. The red road is the way for me personally. And in that way, we make a commitment of sobriety. So I don't drink. I haven't drunk in, I don't know, 8 years. I haven't had a drink of alcohol. You know, when I sit with the sacraments, with the plantas, it's only in a ceremonial context, and it's always very careful and selective, and I'm not sitting. Nowadays, I rarely sit anymore. I mean, I think I've received so much from the teachers. And when I sit with Abuelita, she's always like, what are you doing here? Have you done the things I told you to do? And I'm like, oh yeah, I still got to work on that. It's like, go back and work on it. So I'm still workshopping and woodshedding, you know, all the things I've already received the directives. I know. So I don't need to go back to the teacher just to get scolded. It's like, am I doing it? So now it's like, for me, I'm in the stage of my life, at least, where it's like, have I integrated? So integration is like the thing. I don't know how you feel about that for yourself.
No, like... so much resonance once again, man. Like I'm also at the stage where like I did a lot of plant medicine throughout the years. And then it kind of like short-circuited me to the point, you know, going back to the beauty way. I wanted to detach from the way I looked. I had big, beautiful dreadlocks and I looked all cool. And after my 40th ceremony, I was like, just chopped out my head. It's like, fuck it, I'm gonna be ugly on purpose to show that I am beautiful no matter what I look like. And, you know, and that breaking the dreadlocks of 21 years just fucking send out a bunch of things that also like exploded my life and create a lot of difficulties. And it took me years to get back on my feet and be like, okay, now I know who I am, but I had to destroy myself in order to grab the trash from the ground and make a new jaw harp out of it.
Yeah.
on the resonance to that, I went to Laos once, and I went to this village where all the shells from the bombs had become the fences and stuff.
There you go.
And there was so much war junk that I picked up a exploded grenade and I mailed it to my parents in Canada, who were like, "What are you doing mailing us a grenade?" But I ended up painting it and making like a Fabergé egg painting out of the grenade.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And for me it was so special because
special.
like, wow, this is like,
Yeah.
this could have killed a man. So what a dark, terrible little
Yes.
piece of metal. But now let's rebirth it and transform it to something beautiful that hopefully can inspire us to stop doing these terrible things. I don't know.
No, you do know. See, watch the language. I don't know. Feel into the channel of that. Take the responsibility. You do know. Sí sabes.
Okay, I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I do.
It's very subtle, but just shifting even the language, because your heart knows. You don't know. I don't know is the mind. And your mind doesn't know. My mind doesn't know.
Okay.
Pero tu corazón,
I'm trying to
ask it.
empower myself, and I'm going to ask you in 2 seconds about being a leader. And I know we're like, getting to the time that we have for you today, but on the cultural thing of not knowing what you are, but what am I? Like, I feel like I'm an eternal soul that's being so many humans. So I'm like all the cultures at different incarnations, and now I'm like, I guess I'm Peruvian, but what is Peruvian? Am I Andino? I'm from the jungle. I love the jungle more than Lima, but I grew up in Lima. Am I Limeño? Is that me? Or am I Canadian? What kind of Canadian? Am I a Quebecois from Montreal? Am I Welsh because my grandfather was from, like, etc.? Like, am I my genetics? Am I my body? Or like, is that not taking responsibility for my indigenous Celtic roots? Or like, and what if I have many? What if I don't resonate with any? What if I resonate with all of them? And you didn't even go for a path that's Mexican or Brazilian. You went for like a Navajo path that's American. And so we can just decide whatever the fuck we want to decide, and does it even matter? And the I don't knowness, it's like, I'm just a blank canvas, and I get to paint my own painting, and I got my ingredients, and I've honored them, but at the end of the day, I don't have to paint what others have painted before. I can make a new paintings.
and I think that's the invitation. Because only you can see through your eyes. Only you can feel through your heart. And so the way that the world then ripples its vibration into you and how that then fractals out can only happen in this unique way that you bring through as your gift. So who are you? You're everything, and you're nothing.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks, man.
And so that perspective, though, it's like it doesn't end there, right? We can say it in that language like that, and it captures a certain essence, right, of our non-dualistic reality. However, you're invited in this fractal, in this moment, right, of time, is how do you want to respond, responsibility, how do you want to respond to life? So you've been gifted with all of the experiences and all the different lineages that now come through you in this moment to then ask the question, how do I leave this world more beautiful right now? And so you do that through your art, right? I think, and obviously through these podcasts, you're communicating to a lot of other people, your experience, which then inspires their experience, right? And so in the same way, it's what I'm doing too, through sound. And so the invitation, I think, is to continue to allow all of nature and the world to ripple through you, to be open, and as clearly as you can, to then channel that into an expression of beauty, leaving this place then more beautiful, because then that beauty that we birth as our children into the world, continues to ripple out. And so again, we don't need to be biological parents. We're parents, we're parenting all the time. And that's something I think a lot of us oversee, it's an oversight, we lose sight of this. We're parenting, we're mothering, we're fathering, whether we're man or woman, in different ways. What is that archetype of fathering? What does it mean to be the protector, the provider? What it is, to show up every day like the sol, to rise every day, come rain or however storm, the sun is always coming up. And as the sun comes up, it teaches us that masculine principle of showing up and doing things with care. And then the feminine aspect, the mother, of being the nurturer, being able to celebrate the things that were done with care by the masculine. And so we have to celebrate the thing that we birthed. We have to celebrate life. And so this is very essential balance that we each carry within ourselves, no matter our gender and how we identify.
Yeah.
So that's the invitation. And so how do you do that in a beauty way? How do you do that in not a glamour way, in a beauty way?
Yeah.
I hope, yeah, that's,
I understand. And in this confidence of like, this is who I am, and I do know, and we're doing it, it feels right now that it's important times on humanity and planet Earth, and we gotta stand up and be leaders with confidence to go out there and lead those who will need us more and more towards the path of, I know, a better future. But as
a better now.
A better now that never ends. I try to be humble. As an artist who's well known, like there's treacherous situations, as you must understand, like, you know, that you don't want it to get to your ego. So sometimes you bring it down, sometimes you bring it out too much, but you gotta have this confidence. So like, I want to be a leader, but I feel there's like a hierarchy in leadership. It's like, oh, I'm the boss. I show the way. You got to follow me because I know and you don't know. And that kind of feels weird to me. But at the same time, I feel like I have to embody enough of what I've learned to like share. How do you do it? Have you found the way for yourself to do that role without being some kind of boss man, hierarchical position, but like a guide, you know?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. I think you said it though. You had a key in there that I think was the key to the question, embodied. It's like how embodied leadership, I think, is at the essence for me. It's like, how do I lead by example? How do I lead by being the thing, by becoming, by actually embodying the leadership qualities, right? Myself, rather than saying it, seeing it, and then just projecting it, because then it becomes more projection. Already, like you said, you know, it's this dance. When you know your channel, fire my spirit. I stop. When you know you're very connected to the prayer of your life and your dharma, right? I use this word from Buddhism. You know, dharma. It's like when you know your calling. There's a calling on your life. You know, you came here for a specific mission, and I feel this very much. That's definitely how I know this. And so that calling of being able to connect people, humans, my relatives here in the scene, more deeply to the earth and to themselves, to instill that embodiment, that's at the core for me. And so how do I lead that? I have to do that work in myself. I have to constantly be working on myself. So it never ends. It's like for me, I'm always having to look back into myself. How do I become more embodied? What is my daily practice? Even though I'm on the road, I'm touring, like how am I living what it is I'm singing about? How do I have coherence with what it is I'm creating in my art? And I find that when I do that, when I nourish myself in that way, my art is actually 1,000 times more powerful. When I don't, when I'm incoherent, when I forget and I'm not doing my practices and I get out of sorts and I get dysregulated, get into a trauma response, you know, fight or flight kind of thing, then it's like, oh my God, my art sucks because I'm disconnected. I'm no longer clear. And so it's not like I'm always one or always the other. It's you're constantly, and you know this, it's like you're on a surfboard. And so it's like you're always on this edge of the surfboard, and it's like you start thinking too much about it, you're gonna fall off the surfboard and wipe out and get tumbled, and you know. But it's about like, how do I stay in this flow, even with myself on a day-to-day, even when I'm in the grind of airports and TSA and people searching all my stuff, and they're like, what is this crazy instrument? Like, it looks like a bomb. And you know, you're like, no, it's not a bomb. I mean, I drop beats, not bombs. And so I'm always playing with this dance of like, how do I stay regulated and calm? And like one of my greatest teachers is my beloved, my partner, you know, Ashley. She was with me on the road. And you know, to be on the road with your beloved, with your partner, it's different than when you're just with a bandmate. You know, it's like you're bandmates, but like you're not like lovers and everything to each other. So we work together. We also have like a business part of our relationship, and then we have our intimate part of our relationship, and then we have a performance part of our relationship. And what we've had to cultivate is this ability to say, no, our relationship comes first. And then everything then orients around that. And that has been such a school of like teaching me of like how to come back, how do I nourish myself and nourish each other. And then from that place of being resourced, I'm able to then show up more grounded. And then when I teach this, when I share this, it's coming from a place of coherence. So it resonates. And so I say this in my workshops and my retreats, you know, it's like, I'm going to say a lot of things. You may or may not resonate with it. But in the end, I want you to feel it. So it's always experiential. So I always try to teach by creating an opportunity for everyone to feel and resonate themselves. That way you don't have to believe my words. You feel it in your body.
Yeah, it's just like an example. You just are it without having to tell people, and telling people always kind of ruins it. It seems like the same as when people say like I'm a shaman, like that takes away the shamanness.
I don't even like the word, I kind of like, oh, don't even use that, because it's already an appropriated word. There's a lot of connotation to it that I think has its own karma. It's already been, and that I think it loses then, it becomes this label, and it actually loses what is the essence. What is a shaman?
Yeah.
Right? What is a shaman? At the core, a shaman, if we looked at what is a shaman now in modern context, we'd say it's a schizophrenic person, and we'd put them on drugs and we'd stick them in a mental institute. So that's like shaman, right?
Yeah.
Now it's become kind of sexy, right? We've kind of we've changed that, but it's still kind of it's this term that it's like, it has a lot of karma to it. What's at the core of it is that a shaman is a Chakaruna. They're world bridgers. They're artists.
Yeah.
They're an artist who has the ability to listen, to feel with their heart into the unseen realms, and to bring that back as a messenger and communicate that to the people who cannot yet feel. But they can, they just not yet, they haven't cultivated the ability. And so they're more advanced in that way. And they have the allies perhaps of different teachers, plants and otherwise, So they are able to call on the ancestors. They have the language, like idioma, they can speak the language of the plantas, for instance, right? Having that ability is again, being a world bridger, a Chakaruna. They're able to speak and then they're able to translate. And hopefully they do so with integrity. Now that's a whole other question. That's why you have shenanigans. Lots of shenanigans, right?
Whoa, I never heard that one.
Oh yeah, I'll give you that. That's a code, yeah.
Shenanigans.
Nowadays, there's so many shaman. Everybody who sits in ayahuasca, and now they get an insight. Now they're like, I need to be shaman. I'm shaman. And then all of a sudden they're taking pictures and selfies and they're like doing ads on Instagram. You have to look at this, right?
And they're giving a bad name to the real ones.
1,000%. The real ones will never call themselves shaman.
Yeah.
Ever. Because they know that's not actually what it's about.
Yeah.
You don't need a label. It's like you either are it or you're not it. And the way you recognize, like the mestres in Brazil, like de capoeira. Se conhece capoeira, né?
Yeah.
So the capoeiristas, you never were like, oh, here's the sword on your shoulders. You're now dubbed a knight. You're now dubbed a mestre. No, you're a mestre not because you proclaimed this. You're dubbed it because your community, they see and feel the medicine that you carry, and they respect you. And they call you mestre because they know it precedes you. It's not about your ego saying that I'm this thing and I have a title and I have a thing on a shingle on my door saying I'm, doctor, PhD, la la la. No importa.
So it's something on the DL.
It's embodied. It's embodied. Como dijiste, it's embodied. When we embody the knowing and it's embodied, it resonates. It's a frequency. And you just walk into a space and you meet the space with that knowing, and it comes from a place of humility by its very nature, because you know that you don't know anything. The ones who know you don't know shit.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
Because there's too much, and there's the things we don't know that we don't know. It's so great. It's so vast. So we're all chiquito, we're niños, right? And so to start to take a place of like, I have this power, it becomes this insidious side of like, it starts to feed this power dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And that's like you were speaking to this, it's a hierarchy then. And then you lose the real medicine, and then you're anything but a shaman.
Right.
You're actually, now you're creating the opposite. You become really
more ignorant than the ignorant.
It's a chaotic, you bring this chaotic element that then will undermine you and you don't even realize it. It's like you're creating confusion and chaos.
You just create another mask when you're just trying to liberate yourself and liberate others, even if you got good intentions.
And honestly, it's more insidious, because then you're actually don't even aware. So then you're like, you can't even see the blind spot, because you're so fixated here in the presentation that you cannot see. So that's when, in the Red Road, in the Red Road, by the way, it's not just Dene, it's many different lines run through it. A lot of it comes from the Lakota people. So I just want to clarify that. So I'm a sun dancer. I have the honor, the privilege to dance with my brothers and sisters as a sun dancer.
Can you explain what that is for the people who don't know?
Oh my God, I think we need another hour to talk about it. But I'll the brief part that I can share is that it's one of 7 very sacred ceremonies held by the Lakota Sioux people, and it's one of the ceremonies that is required of you when you are called into walking the path as a medicine person, as a spiritual person, as a warrior. and not just a warrior, for destruction, but a warrior for healing, for peace. And so, yeah, it's a very big subject. So I don't want to
But it involves a
misrepresent.
lot of suffering.
Sacrifice. The difference
Well,
is a choice.
don't you have to put like hooks in your body and dance in the sun for days without water?
Or food.
Why so much suffering, Poranguí?
Sacrifice. There's a difference.
Okay.
Suffering, you don't have a choice. Sacrifice, you have a choice. It's a choice to pray in that way and to make yourself, to go through the discomfort, to be able to become an offering yourself to life itself. And there's a lot here, so believe me, I'm trying my best to, I want to be very careful about what I say here.
Yeah.
But so I'm being very, so just forgive me. We'll have to do another interview and I can share more with some tobacco. But I just want to say, like, it's simply put, we come into this world in a very painful, traumatic way. Birth itself is a very challenging experience that our mothers endure for our
Life.
benefit, for our life. All of life is because our mothers were willing to literally go through the pain and suffering of giving birth, right? A watermelon through a small aperture. So just think of this, the power of this. So for this very reason, as men especially, this ceremony is one of the ways in which we are able to connect to that suffering our mothers endured, to also be able to understand it deeply, even though we cannot give our blood and we don't have that sacred connection to the moon and the earth to bleed every month, which has been super suppressed. And now there's tampons and no one talk about it. Oh, she's on her she's being a whatever.
Yeah.
There's all these misconceptions of this. This is so fundamental to speak to the distortions of our society and how we do not understand still in 2024 what is at the core of being a human being, what is at the core of being an earthling, what is at the core of being related to the earth. So when we talk about Hojon and the beauty way, I'm talking about all of this. It's about being embodied in the way and knowing our bodies. Most people don't even know their body at all. They just think it's a meat suit. They don't understand how sacred it is, how it carries all the intelligence, all the codes of every being on earth. It's written in us. All the fluids that our body creates, at what point in our life it matches the fluids and the sacred sites of the earth herself. I mean, there's so much here.
Is that why it's called a red path? Because of the blood?
It's a good question. I think perhaps there's more to it than that, but I think that might be one level of it.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot there. So I know we're almost out of time.
I'm not gonna keep on making you questions. I got like so many questions.
I know we need more time.
But
we unfortunately have to go sound check, or I would be like, let's go.
No, it's so good. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Would you have some final words of wisdom or good vibes to the people who watch this show as we wrap up here? Because people got your music.
Yeah.
And you're so kind to give us your time here, your words and your wisdom, and that's why I wanted to hunt you down, and get you here on the show. And I'm so grateful. Wow, I feel like I've learned today to be more me through the mirror of you.
Yo también.
Oh, gracias.
Yeah, gracias a ti. Yeah, I guess I would just share, with those who are tuning into this, inviting you, to look at in your life how you can be a Chakaruna, how you can bridge these worlds, because again, only you can do you. And I think that's really important. It can't be, overstated. Only you can do you. Only you have the medicine that you bring to this world. And when we deny ourselves, when we don't cultivate self-love, when we do not actually honor our unique expression, and even in our physical, but then in the non-physical, right? When we don't honor that, or we're ashamed of it, we're in that channel of shame and guilt, and we're shut down, and we feel these layers of scar tissue that maybe even aren't from this lifetime. Maybe other lifetimes, maybe ancestral, maybe societal, we've been silenced. When we're not allowing that expressive channel to be open as creators rather than consumers, we are disconnected and disempowered. And the franchises, they like this because they just want passive consumers to just buy more stuff and pay taxes. They don't want you to actually question. They don't want you to actually be a creator, to be an author, because an author has authority. And so I just leave this with you, invite you to open yourself up as a Chakaruna, as a world bridger, and look at what are your gifts, because you do have them. Trust me, trust my brother Chris here, you have these gifts. And so invitation is harness, cultivate those gifts, master those gifts, because only you can do you and bring those gifts with the resonance of your heart into the world at this time. And we, as in life itself, needs that medicine to be whole. Gracias.
Aho. Woo! So beautiful. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all those boring things you don't want to do. But let's spread the medicine. Blessings.
Hasta mais.
Woo! Yau! Qué lindo. Gracias. Next episode, Ishkala.
You activate flow state through being so creatively engaged and focused, and you're challenged in just the right ways to hone this thing, and you keep massaging it, and you are required to become so present with that thing that you're doing that the mind just kind of evaporates. And we're able to drop into that state, and where the thing is actually just creating itself through you. And it's amazing, because I think most of the time when we're creating from that place, it's awe-inspiring for us as the artists to be making the thing. We're like, oh my God, like, how did I make that? I don't know how I made that.
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.